So for the design of this PVC sheath, I'm going to go off of this one, so just so you can kind of see. I know it's not very pretty. We'll try and make this one look a little nicer because this was my first one, but what we're going to do is we're going to take basically the length of the knife, add just a little bit, and then we're going to cut from here, kind of in half. We're going to cut the PVC long ways, and then notch it out right there. That way we can get a little bit of a belt loop that will bend in, cut out and bend in a little bit later. So all you want to do is you want to make sure you have a little bit of room for the tip, just so you're not having the tip sticking out, and a little bit of room here on the butt, and then you're just going to make a clean cut that way, and that's where we're going to start. So when you're making this mark here, because this is where we're going to cut down to, keep in mind, you want to make sure that you leave enough room on this side of your cut to get a little bit of your handle in there, because that's what's going to create kind of that friction hold once we mold it all up. So you want to make sure that you leave just a little bit, and we'll actually come back later and we'll trim out a little section right here so that we can actually remove the knife. But for right now, make sure that we have enough room here, and that's what we're going to do next. We're going to cut kind of longwise, just roughly, just roughly right there. And that doesn't have to be super straight because we're just going to mush it down anyway. So that's the next step. We're just going to cut that out too. Okay, so now we have, after making cut the PVC looking kind of like this, we have enough room. Here's basically what we're going to do. We're going to have the knife go in here and sit right about there. And then we're going to turn this area here into a bit of a belt loop. So what you're going to see next, which may be kind of hard for me to show you very well filming, so I'll explain it here, is I'm going to heat this area up, and then I'm going to mush it flat, which PVC, once you get it hot, it bends relatively easily. So we'll mush that flat, and then once we get this flat, we can set the knife in here, once this is warmed up obviously, and mush that down as best as we can. And that'll kind of expand this, which right now the knife doesn't quite fit, which is actually kind of good, because that means that once we move it just a little bit, we'll be able to get that knife in there and kind of mold it to shape. So that's what I'm going to do next. I'm going to heat this section up, and just squish the two. So I'll see you there. So what I'm going to do here is I have my forge. I'm not actually forcing any air into it, so I'm just using it as you would like a fire pot or something like that. So you don't actually need a forge for this, just somewhere to start a fire. As I'm just going to light it up with some wood chips. Get kind of not a super hot fire burning, but just a decent heat, just an ambient heat sitting in there. And from there, then that's what I'm going to take this, and I'm just going to gently pass it over. You don't want to put it right in the flame, because what I found out the hard way is PVC will burn, and it looks really, really bad and gross once it starts burning real bad. So you really just want to get some of that heat. Just because imagine, you could in theory do this with a hairdryer if you had the patience, more patience than I do. So you don't need it in that heat. Like, you're not trying to get this up to some ridiculous temperature. You just want that, whenever you put your hand over a fire and you feel the heat coming off, that's really all you need for this. Otherwise, you will severely burn your PVC and you'll kind of have to start over, or you'll just have a lot to clean up afterwards. So I'll get back to you once this is kind of kicking up a little bit more heat than it is right now, and show you kind of the idea of how we're going to do this. Alright, so now that I have my little fire going at a decent temperature, it's not ridiculously hot, it's not some, roaring bonfire, but it's hot. It's clearly, it's warm. I don't want to keep my hand over it for too long. So right up here, I'm not actually going to stick it down in the flames. I'm just going to keep it up here. Just going to wave it around a little bit and see how quick it's already starting to discolor right there. That's kind of what you don't want. You want to just let those top of those flames lick it and get just some of that heat. Even if you have to put it off just a little bit to the side, to the left or the right, you just want to get some of that ambient heat. Just slowly let it soak up some of the temperature surrounding that fire. And we'll just do this process for just a little while, and you'll start to tell. You'll start to be able to notice whenever the PVC is really getting warm enough. It'll actually kind of start to droop a little bit on its own most of the time, and that'll let us know that we're ready. I'm just going to take a brick, just a flat surface, and I'm going to put it down either over there on the concrete or on my little anvil right here. Either one would work just as well. And the idea is you're just going to mush it up against something flat to kind of smooth that rounded side out. And now we just be patient. So if you can see right here, see on the very end of this piece, how the edges are kind of curling up? That's typically a good sign that it's moldable. So you see how easily that pushes out. And the bottom, back a little bit closer to where the knife's actually going to be, isn't quite there yet. But we're just going to keep fanning it over the fire, getting it a little bit warmer piece by piece, and we'll work as we go. Alright, so it looks like I have it at the right temperature. Now I'm just going to set it on my anvil here. Sorry I'm out of frame, but just kind of mush it. And whenever you mush it down, you want to mush it and just hold it for a couple seconds. Let it kind of cool off. And once it cools off, it'll get a little bit more rigid and hold form. So now we're already getting this kind of fanned out real easily. And we'll just continue this process till we get it a little closer right here. So now that I have this where the belt loop is going to be, now that I have this section relatively flat, I've flattened it out a couple times. Now I'm going to start working on the actual sheath part. And a tip, if you want to, while this is still hot, if you want to flip it around and hold it, something that'll actually kind of lock that shape in, is just dip it in a little bit of water. It'll cool it off really easily and kind of get it to hold that form just a little bit better. But now I'm going to take, just while this heat's it's still got plenty of heat, I'm just going to hold this over it and do the same process and mush this down a little bit, and we'll just kind of work as we go. And then as we get close, I might not be able to catch this on video, the very final couple of presses where we'll put the knife in it. But you can kind of imagine I'm just going to put the knife in it while it's still hot and just kind of mold it down. If you're worried about the knife that you're going to be using, then you could maybe wrap it in saran wrap or something like that, but I'm not too worried about the one I'm going to do. So we'll give this a whirl. So as I'm doing here, this something that I've noticed that actually makes it a lot less likely that you'll get these burn marks is if you just get it to a hot fire and then you blow it out and just use that heat off the embers, it's a lot less likely to actually discolor and burn it and get a lot closer and more controllable. Just a tip. But I guess an update real quick too is I have it close. It's getting there. I just need to do a couple more moushes, a couple more molding moushes, and it should be good to go. So at this point, what we're left with, even though I was relatively careful doing it, is a slightly discolored piece of PVC and a relatively decent mold. It's not ridiculously Loctite, but it is pretty secure. It makes a decent little click whenever you put it in, so I'm happy with this. This will work for me. It's really just intended to be something I can carry the knife around in. It doesn't have to win any beauty contest. So the next thing I'm going to do is, which, let me preface real quick, try and do this maybe if you can outside, or wear a mask or something, because this PVC dust is just gnarly. But I'm just going to shape it up. I'm going to clean up some of this burny stuff, maybe sand it down a little bit, and then touch up these edges, make them a little bit smoother so it fits better. And then we're going to make two long ways cuts right here. I'll mark them off real quick. Basically where we want our belt to be. So we're going to make two cuts right here. And imagine a little rectangle. We're going to then heat this up and kind of bend that rectangle out. That way we can run a belt loop through it cleanly as we did here. That's basically the idea. So where we're at right now is we have to clean it up, make it look prettier, and add the belt loop, and then that's pretty much the end of the project. So I'm going to use to cut this out is just a little Dremel tool with a cutoff disc on the end. I'm sure there's a lot of other stuff you could use to cut out such a small piece of PVC, but that's just what I have on hand, so that's what I'm going to use. So I decided before I go and bend this, I'm actually going to clean this up real quick, just with a standard metal file. So clean that up, and then we'll do the rest. So I went ahead and heated this up, and here's what we're left with now. So just as a test, I'm going to run my belt through it, and sure enough, belt runs through it with no problem, which is good. That'll save us some time. If it doesn't quite make it through, if it's a really tight fit here after bending it, you can take something like a Dremel tool and just kind of sand out a little bit of that gap, just widen it. But we're actually not going to need to do it this time. And really, now that it's got that, now it's got the belt loop, we'll check it for fit one more time. Oh, it's sketchy. Okay, there we go. For a second I was worried that it wasn't going to fit, but we got a good fit here. And now we're just going to clean all this up, and I'll show you guys the finished product. Alright, so here's the finished thing. At least this is as finished as I'm going to do it. You could have cleaned it up way more than I did. Clearly, I left a lot of it pretty rough. But I don't mind. Like I said, it's just a little sheath to throw one of my personal knives in. This isn't something I would like sell to somebody. But if you're in the same situation as me, you make some of these knives but you don't have any leather, well, you might just run to Home Depot or Lowe's and grab yourself some PVC. I'm not going to put the knife in it because I left it just a wee bit tacky. I probably shouldn't be handling it just yet. but I sprayed on a very poor paint job. Mind you, you could do a lot better than I did, but sprayed on a little bit of green spray paint because I figured it would match the slight green liners I have on this knife. But that's pretty much it for this video. If you want to give this a try, feel free. In total, I think it probably took maybe a half an hour, and that's including just a little bit of filming I did for it. So it could probably take you 20-25, and if you had a heat gun, you could probably bang these out in like 10 minutes. So if you have all the equipment, it would be an easy little fun project to do. But that's pretty much all for this one. Check out the channel for more, and I'll see you guys next time. God bless.